This is History Snacks. Weird, gross, disgusting, fascinating facts from the past served up fast so that you can sound smart when people bring up things like the War of Jenkins Ear. It was a real war started by an insult. So let me get you caught up quick. In the 1700s, European countries liked to sail big boats full of people to faraway places. But mostly to each other's waters because, like personal space, it wasn't really invented yet. Like imagine if some random dude from South America was walking through your house right now and you had to yell in su ago, or else he could take whatever he wanted. Yeah, those were the vibes. And that meant sometimes when captains like British Captain Robert Jenkins was sailing through waters claimed by Spain, he would have to deal with Spanish coast guards. On one such occasion in 1731, Jenkins was doing his thing when Spanish coast guards boarded his ship. They cut off his ear. Now, most people would freak out, maybe faint, or at least shout out. But not Jenkins. Nope. He pickled the ear. In a jar. For later. Because apparently revenge is best served. Preserved. Then Jenkins went straight to British Parliament where he showed the pickled ear to the MPs and yelled, "Look what they did to me," and naturally, they decided to start a war about it. So British politicians were horrified not just by the ear, but by the idea of Spain messing with British ships. So they said, oh yeah, well we'll show 'em before charging headlong into a conflict that would become known as the War of Jenkins Ear. Okay, so technically it was called the War of the Austrian Succession, but don't worry about that now. Just remember the ear. Yeah, the ear. Right. Okay, great. Let's go to war. Except while the story starts with a very small slice of history, it's actually a pretty big deal. Britain and France weren't having it anymore. They were tired of Spain and Austria ruling the Caribbean and taking all the profits from trade there. So the British prepared for war with Spain and Portugal with a navy fleet that included this guy. Yeah, okay, we're not actually going to talk about him. No, we are instead going to talk about how Britain and Spain have been fighting each other since forever, and that if you want to learn more about that, you should watch another channel. Okay, so the British sent out their fleet and they were like, alright guys, we got this. Except, they didn't. You see, the British were like 300 years old. Back in the 1700s, they were like, oh, hey, kids, look, we're so much better than those silly foreigners. We have huge ships and huge cannons and huge egos. We're so powerful and they're so puny and weak, except, no, turns out Spain and Portugal were both maritime powers with strong navies. Like in one battle, a British warship fired on a Spanish ship with a broadside, which means they hit them with every single cannon on one side of the ship at the same time. And in theory, it should have been devastating. But the Spanish ship was so close to the British ship that the cannonballs bounced off their upper deck and fell into the sea. And also, the British ship was so close that the smoke from their own guns knocked out their aim. So instead of hitting the Spanish ship, the British hit themselves and injured 160 of their own crew. I mean, to be fair, that probably still would have been devastating for the Spanish, except they didn't even notice because they were hiding in a thick fog. Anyway, by 1741, the war was not going well for the British. In fact, out of the 30,000 men sent to fight in the Caribbean, only about 10,000 were still alive. Disease and bad planning and Spanish defenses had taken out the rest. Which doesn't mean that they all died from battles against the Spanish, but it does mean that the enemy wasn't always the other guy. Like yellow fever took out 2,000 British soldiers in Jamaica alone. Plus, they kept losing supplies because they couldn't tell where they were. Maps were being held upside down and entire naval fleets were getting lost. Meanwhile, the Spanish lost less than half that number of men in battles with the British. So after all that, the British High Command decided to switch tactics. Instead of trying to fight everywhere, they sent troops to capture towns that Spain used as bases for attacking British ships. This strategy worked better. By 1748, the British controlled the Bahamas, Jamaica, and the Spanish port of Cartagena. But the peace treaty ended the war before they could finish capturing Cartagena. So it was sort of a win for the British, but it was definitely a loss for everybody's ears. I mean, thousands of people died, empires lost money, and all history remembers is a geyser in a jar. But hey, on the bright side, that jar was probably really well sealed. War of Jenkins Ear is over, but the bigger conflict it got wrapped up in sure isn't. If you want to hear about that, you should check out a certain channel. In the meantime, we have more history snacks coming soon. So if you want to see more fun historical tales, subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And finally, a huge thank you to CapCut, who made this episode possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to bring these bizarre history tales to you. As thank you, you'll get access to fun perks like bloopers, behind-the-scenes posts, and more. I'm the host of History Snacks, a spin-off from Crash Course Kids. And this has been our episode on the War of Jenkins Ear.